support President Obama's proposal to make the $2,500 tax credit permanent for parents of full-time college students making up to $180,000 a year.
I support that tax structure because, to me, education is a great investment. It's probably one of the best investments that we can make for our children and for anybody who's going to college and to our universities. And we, in our family, my mother told us that each and every one of us would have a college degree, be it a vocational degree, 2-year degree, be it a law degree, but we would have to, obviously we couldn't afford that given our financial situation. So I know what it means to struggle with student loan bills that are tremendous, and we're still paying them back, to be perfectly honest with you. But to me, it's a great investment. I encourage it, and that type of tax policy is something that encourages that type of long-term investment return on your dollars into that educational degree that you earn.
I just can't believe that you just made something up. I mean, you made up the fact that you don't have a report that's never been published. Is that the type of leadership you want representing you, as someone who's willing to blatantly lie before you? Let's talk about student loan debt from somebody who actually has it, Tom, because I've looked at your financial filings and you don't. I have $100,000 in student loan debt. I have a mortgage, just not the house. Our government currently is not set up to be able to support the future generation of Americans. And when I proposed, and you criticized me a couple of weeks ago for this, was a plan first advocated by Milton Friedman. Friedman had in 1954 looked into the future and basically said colleges are going to get too expensive. It's not going to be affordable. It's going to send most people out in the world to not be able to compete in the global economy. And we simply need to remove the practice of bank loans as a means of funding and replace it with government-backed support. He called it income-based repayment. Now, Tom, you criticized it as me trying to socialize private education in this country, but I doubt Ronald Reagan's chief economic advisor was a socialist. And I doubt that Ronald Reagan would have hired a socialist to be his chief economic advisor. Yes, by the way, I do support what the president is trying to do, but I think it's a good first step. My generation is so heavily indebted by student loan debt right now that there's more debt held by banks in the forms of student loans than there are credit cards. Thanks to the Bush administration, it is the only type of debt that is not transferable through bankruptcy court. And for you parents out there who signed on the dotted line, God forbid your kid dies, you get to take over that debt because it's the only type of debt in the country that can't be wiped out through bankruptcy court. This is going to be a profound problem. It's going to impact my generation's ability to purchase homes. It's going to impact my generation's ability to purchase cars. Or think of it this way. Imagine if Steve Jobs had gone to get his small business startup loan for Apple, and the bank looked at his debt-to-income ratio, and they said, I'm sorry, Mr. Jobs, you have too much student loan debt to justify your small business startup loan. Somewhere in this room right now, there's probably another Steve Jobs. Somewhere in China right now, there's another Steve Jobs. The person in this room, you're not going to get a small business startup loan under the current system. You're going to have too much debt. Your Chinese counterpart, they're going to get the loan and they're going to start the company. And that is our profound problem going forward. This system does not work. It has to be fixed. And we have a wonderful example provided to us by the Republican Party's preeminent economist, Milton Friedman, in how to do it.
And that's a wonderful segue into the student portion of the questions. And the first one comes from Christopher Jack, who wants to know what can be done to lower the cost of college tuition.
Again, I was talking about this before. It's called income-based repayment. Hypothetically, let's say Bonaventure charges you $50,000 a year to go to school here.
It doesn't.
Okay. We're gonna do round, easy numbers. Okay. So hypothetically, let's say it's $50,000. Current situation, you can fund college in a variety of ways. You can self-fund, which God bless you if you can do that. I mean, I really do mean that. That's wonderful. Most Americans don't have that option. You can go out and get scholarships to cover the entire cost of your education, and God bless you if that's possible. There's not enough of them out there for everyone to be able to do that. You can do what I did, which was join the military. Now, I joined prior to the post-9/11 GI Bill, so it didn't cover the entire cost of my education. And the military is not a choice that everybody chooses to make. Or you can do what the majority of Americans do, which is you get a bunch of student loan debt via banks. The problem becomes is that when it comes time to graduate, and you can't find a job in this district because, for example, our generation's unemployment rate is currently at 26%. That's right, 1 out of every 4 college students in this district cannot find a job. That's a big problem because the bank doesn't care whether or not you don't have a job. You owe them a couple $100 at the end of the month. And if you can't make that payment, There are penalties on not making that payment. There's interest on those penalties. Your debt-to-income ratio gets absolutely wiped out. Your credit gets wiped out. And suddenly, you don't have the ability to be able to go out and be a productive member of society. Now, Friedman saw all of this, and his solution, which is one I advocate, is income-based repayment. And how it works is, rather than going to the bank, you find out, okay, you say, look, I've got enough savings, and with work, study, and a bunch of scholarships, maybe I can cover $10,000 a year, but there's still $40,000 out there that I can't get. And Friedman said it's simple. The government will make an investment in you. They will cover the cost of college. But upon leaving college or dropping out, the minute you enter that labor force, you're going to operate at a substantially higher income tax level. It's just like Social Security payroll tax. You would just simply be withdrawn until you've paid off your debt to society. And Friedman called this a uniquely American concept because the incentive is work as hard as you possibly can. Make as much money as you possibly can in as short as amount of time possible so that so that you pay off your debt in a rapid time. The minute you pay off your debt, your income tax rate drops down to the ones where everybody else that doesn't have taxes currently operates at. Now, I'm not just making this up. It's not that this thing is somehow some theoretical. It's currently practiced in Australia, New Zealand, and it will be going into play in the United Kingdom.
Well, Mr. Zeller, that answers the question of how a student could pay for it, but the question was how could you possibly, or what could be done to lower the actual cost of the tuition and expenses other than lowering the salary of the dean of the School of Journalism?
That lower
my answer for you.
that helps lower costs because suddenly what you do is you have a lot more, the ability to people to go to school is increased. You've got more people out there. I agree with you. There's also absolutely no need for Yale to have $26 billion in its endowment. I mean, Yale can cut all tuition right now, forever, and would never have to charge a person another dime and still be able to cover all of its operating costs and all of its salaries and everything simply on the interest it makes off the endowment alone. But going forward, I agree with Tom. I don't want to socialize private education. I don't want the government to come in and tell St. Bonaventure how much they're going to charge per student. I want to be able to give students the opportunity to go to school without having to graduate with a mortgage's worth of debt when they leave.
Thank you.
On that issue, before we get into that issue, I hope people recognize that, I can be called a liar and I don't respond. I can be called a politician and I don't respond. Because I don't care about that game anymore, ladies and gentlemen. The time for name calling, the time for taking personal shots is come and gone. When we go down to Washington, D.C., we're going to engage in the debate. We're not going to speak with a silver spoon in our mouth all the time, but we're going to have the debate without getting into name calling and calling people a liar and this and that. So I hope you understand that I try to conduct myself with a different decorum. When it comes to lowering the cost, you're absolutely right. We need to look at, a lot of the universities are private universities, so there's an issue between recognizing that the government can only go so far before it's going beyond its role, and that's what we stated before. The private sector are issues that have to be dealt with in the private sector. So if you're in a private university such as St. Bonaventure, and I wasn't joking when I said cut the administration salaries, cut the dean's salaries. As a consumer, each one of these students in this room is a consumer of the product that is being sold to them that is generating the debt load that they have to carry when they graduate from these universities. Look at those salaries. Look at those costs. And just as I look at my small business operation and we look at the expenses that we can control, personnel costs is a vast majority of those expenses, and they have to be looked at and done so with an open and honest debate. The other thing we can talk about is we go back to the healthcare debate. A lot of the costs that are being generated here is healthcare related, when we talk about personnel costs. So we have to have an honest and open discussion about driving down healthcare costs, and that's what we've been talking about. And I think overall, you get into that situation where those costs are driven down, then the private universities, and I see my time is up, the private universities and the operations can lower their costs and pass those savings on to their students, and hopefully that's what will occur.
This question is from Justine Haskell. She wants to know, how would you make it possible so everyone has the equal opportunity of being accepted into college?
There is no guarantee in life. There is no guarantee that we can sit here and mandate to all universities and colleges across the board that everyone has to be accepted. Private universities have their criteria. That's what made America great. And if we start going down the path of making sure that everybody gets a participation award, everybody gets, a guaranteed acceptance into a university, we're fundamentally changing America. And to me, that's not acceptable. Now, I applaud everybody who steps forward and applies to a university. That's what you should do. I teach my kids that. They're all going to college, one way or the other, even if they don't want to. Because that is the key to the future. But I can't look you in the eye and tell you that I'm going to guarantee you that you're going to have that opportunity. You have to pursue that opportunity. You must vigorously go out there. The government cannot guarantee you success. What government can do is guarantee you the opportunity to succeed, and that's the philosophy we were raised with. That's the philosophy we bring to the table, and that's what we're going to do in Washington, D.C., and recognize that fundamentally, this big government takeover of America has to end.
My father always used to tell me I needed to be a self-starter. He said, I'm not going to be there for you for the rest of your life, and you've got to be able to, get the job done when it's necessary. So he said, I'm not going to sit here and handhold you through your homework. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, that you can't go out and play until your homework's done. I'm going to sit here and say, look, at some point, you're either going to fail out or you're going to graduate, and you'll learn the hard way through life. And I thank him for that. I agree with Tom. Government's not here to guarantee that everybody gets to go to college. But Tom said, and I agree with this, government should be there to guarantee that everybody has the opportunity, the tools with which to be able to try and pursue that dream. Then he didn't offer me any specifics, so let me offer you some of my own. First, we have to recognize that no child left behind has done nothing but leave our children behind. You see, we're graduating kids from high school without the ability to actually succeed in college. We've got to start recognizing that our entire public education system is falling apart, and it needs massive fixing. We have to start recognizing that overcrowded classrooms are not the solution, that we need actually smaller classroom sizes so that teachers can have an ability to teach kids rather than trying to figure out how they manage 60 children for 40 minutes and then move on to the next class and the next class. We need to have an ability for as parents, that you don't have to work 3 or 4 jobs just to be able to put a family's meal on the table, that you can work one job and then be able to be there when your kids get home from school so that you can pass on that lesson like my dad passed on to me, the idea that you need to be a self-starter going in life, rather than just, having to drop the kids off the babysitter and go on to the next job and hope to God that some value gets passed on. We need the ability to start reforming our education system in this country, and it shouldn't just be about college. It should go all the way down to kindergarten. We need to start being able to set people up to be successful in this global economy.